I can lean like this, but that's kind of weird.
No, way too aggressive.
I think you're attacked.
Yeah, you don't want to attack our viewers.
Hey y'all, Chris with Liber, back today with a new edition of Bar Hacks. Today we're gonna try to hack our way to making non-alcoholic spirits. We're gonna see if we can put them together at home in just a few hours. Our inspiration for this idea came from the book Zero. It's written by Chef Grant Achatz from the Alinea Group in Chicago. What makes this book unique is that it takes a culinary approach to making drinks. The recipes can be fairly involved and require quite a bit of prep work, not unlike cooking. But the thing that really caught our eye were the recipes included for making your own non-alcoholic spirits. Here at Liber, we've tried many non-alcoholic spirits over the years. We like some, others have left us a little wanting. So our question today is, can you really pull this off at home? Equipment-wise, we just need a saucepan, some fine mesh strainers, and we have all the ingredients from the book laid out. So let's dive in and see if you should DIY a non-alcoholic spirit. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. We're doing great cocktail content every week. So today we picked 2 recipes from the Zero book. We're gonna do their non-alcoholic gin. We're gonna compare it against Seedlip and Ritual, 2 non-alcoholic gin-esque spirits. And we're gonna compare their herbal liqueur to what Grant, the author, says is comparable to Chartreuse. Putting these recipes together is pretty straightforward, but sourcing all of these ingredients is definitely the toughest part of this project. If you have a local international food store, or maybe even just a Whole Foods, you can get most of these, but we also had to resort to Amazon to find some of these more esoteric ingredients. We'll put some links down below to help you source everything. The way you make both the gin and the herbal liqueur recipes is very similar, so we're gonna cook them both simultaneously on 2 burners for the same amount of time. There is one difference with the gin. You'll need to make a juniper tincture and let it sit overnight. To make it, put 300 grams of vegetable glycerin with 150 grams of water and 150 grams of juniper berries into a blender, pulse it a few times, then put it all in an airtight container and into the fridge overnight. The next day you can remove it and strain it through a fine mesh strainer. We may have overdid it on blending this tincture. We actually got more of a puree, whereas the book said just to pulse it a few times. So what we did is just strained it a little bit more, so your tincture may look a little bit different from ours. Now for the main attraction. We'll draw 750 milliliters of water and add it to our saucepan. We're gonna start with the gin. We're gonna add all of our ingredients except for the juniper tincture. Next up is the herbal liqueur based off Chartreuse. 750 mils of water. This one called for quite a few more herbs and spices, which sounds appropriate since Chartreuse is allegedly made with 130 different herbs and spices. We're gonna bring both of these to a boil over high heat and then cover the pots, reduce the heat, and maintain a slow simmer for an hour. So we've simmered, we've cooled, now we're ready to strain out all the solids with the fine mesh strainer. The last step for this non-alcoholic gin is to add in our juniper tincture. So we ended up with just about 1 liter of finished product. We're gonna go ahead and bottle this gin, process the herbal liqueur the exact same way, then we're gonna try them out and make some drinks. So it looks great.
It does not look great.
Today's opposite day.
Today is the opposite day.
Okay, we have set up here to taste this non-alcoholic gin that we just made in about 3 hours flat. We have Ritual's 0 proof non-alcoholic gin alternative, and we have Seedlip, which we think based on the spices that we added to this non-alc gin we've made may be similar, although it's not technically billed as a gin alternative. We also have Staged, basically a non-alcoholic Tom Collins with our product. We're gonna give that a shot just to see how a true mocktail performs with our DIY gin. Let's start with the Ritual gin alternative. Super grassy, has some thickness to it. I think there may be like glycerin. It definitely doesn't pour like an alcohol or even like a water. Some spice character for sure. Herbal and fresh, kind of like a garden feel to it. Has a very distinct spice note that is not like cinnamon spice, but like pepper spice. If I recall correctly, I think Ritual wanted to mimic the burn that you're no longer getting because you don't have alcohol. And I think they picked like black pepper to kind of emulate that spicy finish. It works, you know, as far as that goes. It doesn't obviously taste like the alcohol burn, but it is kind of a substitute. I may want to see like more flavor overall, maybe like keep the spice level where it is, but like boost the accessory flavors. I think it could use a little bit more citrus, but overall I'm impressed with the Ritual product. We have Seedlip up here. This is their Spice 94. Again, not exactly billed as a gin alternative, but some complementary stuff going on here. More citrus, orange and grapefruit, and a lot of cinnamon and maybe clove on the nose. To me, this still reads mostly citrus spice. Actually kind of does play a little bit like a gin in that regard. Does not have any of like the capsaicin like burn or finish that the Ritual brings to the table. But moment we've been waiting for, let's move on to what we've created here. Obviously doesn't look like the other two. A lot of sediment here, a lot of color from those fresh herbs and spices. Let's give it a shot. Tastes sweeter. Don't think we added anything with sugar here, but I think some of the star anise and herbs and spices that we've used just give it kind of a sweeter palate. Not actually as spicy as the Seedlip, certainly more spice character than the Ritual. It's not as filtered, it's not a professional grade product, so you do get like a little bit of the sediment. I think if I were making this at home and enjoying it over a longer period of time, I'd fine filter this, try to do a chinois or a coffee filter, might get some of those particulates out of there, but flavor-wise, it's intriguing. I expected more juniper, right? So we did that whole juniper tincture, we pulsed it, we let it sit overnight. It's definitely there, but it's in the background of cinnamon and star anise. So yeah, I'm not really sure any of these are gonna fool me in terms of being like a gin substitute. They all have different elements of a gin. Do you want like straightforward subtlety and spice? Do you want like capsaicin burn? Or in the case of the recipe we made from the book, more of a medley, probably arguably more going on in this recipe that you can DIY. Looks nice when mixed, better than in the bottle. So for me, right off the bat, this just reads as like a sweet lemonade with a little bit of weird spice. What I think this does really well is help a refreshing summer drink like the Tom Collins kind of go into the fall and summer. Like all of the spice elements that we added to build this non-alcoholic gin show up here. And those are like more cool weather spices. So I think it's maybe an interesting way to transition gin, which is, you know, usually summer, spring, into the cooler months. You don't really get that flavor profile in any of the mass market gins you can find on your liquor store shelf. So our non-alc gin has made a refreshing Tom Collins-esque sort of spiced lemonade, which I would love to drink. I think this is enjoyable, but it's not fooling us in terms of being a gin replacement, but it has elements that we do enjoy. Okay, let's move on to the non-alcoholic herbal liqueur. Zero, the book, said that their non-alcoholic herbal liqueur is influenced by, comparable to green Chartreuse, which if you've had green Chartreuse, you know this packs a punch, right? This is a ton of flavor, a bunch of alcohol, a bunch of sugar. It's kind of a lot to live up to. You probably saw from straining all this out, this had a lot going on, but can it really mimic green Chartreuse? By the way, we just did a video about green Chartreuse and some alternatives that are cheaper. If you want to check that out, it's either here or there. First up, let's try green Chartreuse. Yeah, it's exactly like I remember it. Let's try our version. Different, but not like crazy different. It's in the same ballpark. Immediate differences are green Chartreuse seems sweeter, obviously more boozy. This has bitterness to it. Green Chartreuse does not have bitterness. This actually, all those stems, twigs, leaves, those had molecules that are bitter. I mean, even chlorophyll, right? The greenness of grass, the greenness of the basil that we used, that's a bitter compound. There's a distinct bitter note here. It does not have the beautiful, you know, symphony of flavors, the way that green Chartreuse just comes together. A lot of green vegetable, a lot of like peppery vegetables. Like we did have some actual poblano in there. I'm getting that. There's a dominant honey sweetness, which is nice. We did simmer this for an hour, and I think that heat is also a reason. We've got some bitter notes here. I don't want to say it has like a canned quality because that doesn't sound good, but if you kind of know what I mean, it does have like a sense that it's been on heat. Some of those flavors that are extracted are not so vibrant and fresh as the herbs we started with. It does have kind of a cooked quality. So that is very different from Chartreuse. Complexity wise, like if you were just kind of just summing up all the flavors that are going on here, I think it's comparable. I mean, we had, I don't know, 20 or 30. It may not be 130, but in terms of like overall volume of flavor, it's pretty close to Chartreuse. What I really like to do is make a drink. It's called the Green Eyes Gin. You can find it on our website. It's our gum syrup, little lime juice, gin, and Chartreuse, some egg white. We're gonna just swap out both the non-alc gin that we've made and the non-alc herbal liqueur for gin and Chartreuse and see what we think. It's gonna be fun. Not quite as verdant green as the alcohol version, but it doesn't look bad, right? You would drink that. That works. It doesn't have the sugar content. I think not having as much in the herbal liqueur compared to Chartreuse is making this a little more sour than I remember the actual cocktail. It also definitely has like way more baking spice character. I think the cinnamon, star anise that went into that gin is pushing through pretty heavy here. So definitely different than the recipe you'll find on our website, but overall like complex, balanced. It's got like a lot of what you would want in like a true mocktail. Yeah, this is a good mocktail. So you may be wondering whether or not we think you should actually make this. Okay, it only took a few hours, but there's a lot of ingredients. And I would say probably, at least once, try it out. One thing to keep in mind is the retail versions of non-alcoholic spirits are refined and readily available, but they're also relatively expensive. We'll do a cost breakdown in the description saying like per ounce what you could expect to spend on this. So I think we can successfully say we've hacked our way to a non-alcoholic gin and a non-alcoholic herbal liqueur. Special thanks to our friends at the Alinea Group, and in particular, Chef Grant Achatz for these recipes. We had fun, only took a few hours. Try it out at home, let us know what you think, and come back for more bar hacks and more great cocktail content every week.